The crystal wine glass shattered in my grip, sending pinpricks of pain across my palm as blood mingled with the expensive Bordeaux. I barely registered the gasps around the long mahogany table as I stared at Ambrose Covington, his words hanging in the air like poison. "My son requires someone with proper lineage," he announced, swirling his own untouched wine while looking directly at me. "Not some scholarship charity case playing dress-up in our world." 27 faces turned toward me in perfect synchronization, the Covington dynasty and their inner circle, all waiting to see how I would respond. The crystal chandelier above seemed to pulse with each beat of my heart as Liam's hand found mine under the table, a desperate, apologetic squeeze. I carefully dabbed my bleeding palm with the monogrammed napkin, a perfect scarlet sea now stained with my commoner blood. "Thank you for your honesty, Mr. Covington," I said, rising slowly. "And for confirming what your carefully veiled comments have suggested for months. My name is Olivia, I'm 31 and a financial strategist. This is the story of how I turned a billionaire's contempt into his company's downfall." "Liv, don't go," Liam whispered, half rising from his chair. I touched his shoulder gently. "It's all right. Your father has simply said what he's been thinking since we met." I looked directly at Ambrose, whose expression remained smugly satisfied. Some truths need to be spoken aloud. The marble floors of the Covington estate echoed with my footsteps as I walked out, past the Degas in the hallway, past the staff who had always been kind to me despite their employer's disdain. Liam caught up to me at my car, my sensible hybrid that Ambrose had once called charmingly economical, with that particular tone that made compliments sound like insults. "Please," Liam said, his blue eyes rimmed red. "He's wrong. This isn't who we are." I cradled his face in my hands. "This is exactly who he is, Liam. The question is, who are you?" "I love you," he said, voice breaking. "I'll talk to him. Make him apologize." "No more apologies," I said, the evening breeze cooling the fire in my cheeks. "No more pretending. He's shown us who he truly is. Olivia, don't let him destroy what we have." I kissed him softly. "He can only destroy what we allow him to." I slipped into my car, watching him grow smaller in my rearview mirror as I drove away from the $20 million estate with its manicured perfection. My phone began buzzing before I reached the highway. Liam's mother, Eleanor, no doubt attempting damage control. Then his sister Victoria. I ignored them both. Instead, I called my assistant. "Naomi? I know it's late. Ms. Reynolds? Is everything all right?" Naomi had been with me for 5 years, since before I'd built my reputation in the financial world. "Cancel the Covington Global acquisition. All of it." A long pause. "The papers are ready to sign on Monday. The board has approved everything. Kill it. Send the termination notice to their legal department tonight. Cite fundamental incompatibility of corporate values. Olivia." Naomi dropped formalities. "That's a $3.7 billion deal. He called me a charity case, Naomi." To my face. "In front of everyone who matters in his world. That bastard." The sound of rapid typing filled the line. "Legal will have the termination documents within the hour. Do you want this leaked to the financial press?" "Not yet. Let Ambrose wake up to the official notice first. We'll let the story break mid-morning." "Done. Anything else?" I considered for a moment. "Yes. Schedule a meeting with Kingston Financial for Monday morning." "Their biggest competitor? You going to acquire them instead?" Charity cases need to stick together, don't they? I ended the call and drove the rest of the way to my downtown penthouse in silence, city lights blurring past my windows. I arrived home just after midnight, my mind still racing with what had transpired. Ambrose Covington thought he knew me. He'd investigated my background thoroughly, the scholarship student who'd worked 3 jobs through college, the nobody from nowhere who'd somehow captured his son's attention. What he hadn't bothered to discover was that the nobody had quietly built Apex Capital Partners into one of the most powerful financial firms in the country. That the charity case controlled the investment group his own company desperately needed to stay competitive. I'd kept my position as founder and CEO of Apex deliberately quiet, using proxies for public appearances and letting my work speak for itself. In a world where women in finance were still novelties to men like Ambrose, anonymity had been my greatest advantage. My phone lit up with a new call as I parked, Covington Global's CFO, Thomas Baker. Olivia, it's Thomas. We've just received termination papers from Apex Capital. There must be some mistake. No mistake, Thomas. But we are set for Monday. The shareholders have been notified, the market is expecting the announcement. Then perhaps the board should have considered that before their CEO publicly humiliated me at dinner tonight. Silence. Then quietly, what did Ambrose do? Ask him yourself. I'm sure he'll have a perfectly reasonable explanation for why calling his son's girlfriend a scholarship charity case led to a $3.7 billion deal evaporating overnight. I hung up and poured myself a scotch, taking it out to my balcony where the city sprawled below, a sea of lights and possibilities. Somewhere out there, Ambrose Covington's carefully constructed world was beginning to crumble. I wondered how long it would take him to connect the dots between the charity case at his dinner table and the investor his company couldn't survive without. My phone buzzed again, Liam calling. I let it go to voicemail. He deserved better than to be caught in the crossfire between his father and me, but some battles couldn't be avoided. By morning, I had 53 missed calls. Ambrose himself had tried 9 times, which must have been excruciating for a man who prided himself on never having to call anyone twice. I was reviewing quarterly reports when Naomi called. Financial Times got the story. Bloomberg wants a statement. Tell them Apex Capital Partners has chosen to pursue opportunities more aligned with our core values and commitment to innovation. Beautifully vague and utterly devastating. She paused. Also, Ambrose Covington is in the lobby. I nearly choked on my coffee. Here? Now. Arrived 20 minutes ago. Security won't let him up without authorization, but he's causing quite a scene. Should I have him removed? No. Send him up, but make him wait in conference room B for 45 minutes. I'm still enjoying my breakfast. You're wicked. I'll put him in the room with those uncomfortable Italian chairs. An hour later, I walked into the conference room to find Ambrose Covington looking significantly less imposing than he had the night before. His perfectly coiffed silver hair was disheveled, his bespoke suit wrinkled. The man who'd ruled over dinner like an emperor now looked like what he was, a CEO watching his company's future dissolve. Olivia, he stood when I entered, his jaw tight. Thank you for seeing me. I sat down without offering my hand. You have 5 minutes. He swallowed visibly. I apologize for last night. My comments were inappropriate. Inappropriate? I laughed. You called me a charity case in front of your entire social circle. You humiliated me at your own table while I was there as your guest and your son's partner. I'd had too much to drink. No, I cut him off. You were honest. Drunk words are sober thoughts, Mr. Covington. You've thought I was beneath you since the moment Liam introduced us. Last night, you finally said it out loud. Ambrose's jaw tightened. Even desperate, he couldn't fully hide his disdain. What do you want? An apology? You have it. A public statement? I'll make one. The acquisition needs to happen. Why? Excuse me. Why does it need to happen? Explain to me why I should do business with someone who fundamentally disrespects me. His face flushed crimson. Because it's business, not personal. Everything becomes personal when you make it personal. I stood and walked to the window. You researched me, didn't you? Found the scholarship records, the student loans, the part-time jobs. But you stopped there, you saw where I came from and assumed that defined me. You never bothered to look at where I was going. I turned back to him. Do you know why Apex Capital is successful, Ambrose? You have a good investment strategy. Because I remember what it feels like to be underestimated. Every person we hire, every deal we make, every company we invest in, I ask myself if we are creating opportunity or merely protecting privilege. I leaned forward. Your company represents everything I built mine to overcome: old money protecting old ideas, keeping the door closed to anyone who didn't inherit their seat at the table. That's not. Isn't it? Name one person on your executive team who didn't attend an Ivy League school. One board member who grew up in public housing. One senior director who worked their way through state college. His silence was answer enough. The acquisition is dead, Ambrose. Not because you insulted me, but because you showed me who you really are, and more importantly, who your company really is. This will destroy us, he said quietly. Without this acquisition, Covington Global won't survive the next fiscal year. Then perhaps it shouldn't. I headed for the door. Maybe it's time for companies like yours to make way for those that value people for their potential, not their pedigree. Wait. He stood so quickly his chair toppled backward. What about Liam? You're going to destroy his father's company, his inheritance. I paused at the door. Liam is brilliant, talented, and hardworking. He doesn't need to inherit success, he can build his own. That's the difference between us, Ambrose. You see inheritance as destiny. I see it as a crutch. He'll never forgive you for this. Perhaps not. But at least he'll know I have principles that can't be bought or intimidated away. Can you say the same? I left him there and returned to my office where Naomi was waiting with a knowing smile. Kingston Financial confirmed for Monday morning. They are extremely interested in discussing acquisition terms. Good. Make sure Ambrose hears about it by this afternoon. Already arranged for it to leak through the right channels. I've contacted a financial reporter who's been covering both companies. She'll make sure the information reaches Covington's board. She paused. Liam is waiting in your private office. My heart skipped. How long has he been here? About 2 hours. He arrived right after you started your meeting with Ambrose. I brought him coffee and kept the reporters away. She smiled gently. He used the private elevator. Seems he knows your security codes, the ones you gave him last month when he started staying over regularly. I found Liam sitting in my leather chair, staring out at the skyline. He turned when I entered, his eyes tired but clear. I heard what you told him, he said. Naomi let me listen through the conference room feed. We have audio monitoring in all meeting rooms for security purposes. I sat on the edge of my desk. And? He stood, moving to stand between my knees. And I think I've been a coward. Letting him treat you that way. Making excuses. Hoping he'd change. Liam. No, let me finish. He took my hands in his. I've spent my whole life benefiting from his prejudice without challenging it. Last night, watching him speak to you that way, I was ashamed, not of you but of him. Of myself for not standing up to him sooner. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you'll have me, I want to build something with you, without my family's money or connections or conditional approval. I pulled him close. Are you sure? Walking away from that inheritance is no small thing. He laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound I'd heard in days. Olivia Reynolds, you just terminated a $3.7 billion acquisition because my father disrespected you. I think we'll figure out the money part. I love you, I said, meaning it more than ever. I love you too. Even if you did just declare financial war on my father. Especially because I declared financial war on your father. Especially because of that, he agreed, kissing me. My phone buzzed. Naomi again. Covington's board has called an emergency meeting. Our sources say they're discussing approaching you directly over Ambrose's head. I put the phone on speaker. Tell them Apex might consider an acquisition with Covington Global under new leadership. Emphasis on new. Liam's eyes widened. You're going to force my father out of his own company. I'm going to give the board a choice. Evolve or perish. What they do with that choice is up to them. He considered this, then nodded. He won't go quietly. I wouldn't expect him to. This is going to get ugly. My mother will be devastated. Probably. My sister will write another terrible poem about family tragedy. God help us all. He smiled, and it was sharp and beautiful, and a little bit dangerous. So when do we start? I smiled back. How about now? That's how the charity case became the kingmaker, not with malice or vengeance, but with the simple truth that respect isn't inherited, it's earned. And those who refuse to give it when it's earned learn the hard way that sometimes, the most expensive lesson is the one that costs your empire. By the following week, Ambrose Covington was no longer CEO of Covington Global. The board voted him out after a tense 3-day negotiation, with several longtime allies turning against him when faced with the company's financial reality. By the end of the month, Apex Capital had announced a merger with the newly restructured company. By the following quarter, Liam had launched a foundation focused on providing financial education to underprivileged communities, turning down his father's spiteful offer to fund a competing investment firm. And Ambrose Covington? He learned the most expensive lesson of his life: never call someone a charity case unless you're prepared to become one yourself. 6 months later, Liam and I were engaged, planning a small ceremony far from his father's social circles. We had formally signed our marriage papers at the courthouse, making our union official in the eyes of the law. Ambrose hadn't spoken to either of us since his removal as CEO, though Eleanor called weekly, slowly rebuilding her relationship with her son on more honest terms. In the end, the scholarship student did receive charity, the kind that comes from giving an arrogant man exactly what he deserves.